This is the plaintiff, Kayla Gonzalez. She says she paid the defendant a caterer for her daughter's Sweet 16 party, which had to be called off due to COVID, and the swindler won't return her money. She can't believe he's giving her such a hard time, and she has no other choice but to sue for the $1,600 she's most rightfully owed. This is the defendant, Jeremy. He says he's happy to reschedule the plaintiff's event, just like he's rescheduled 32 others who were affected by the shutdown due to the pandemic. Deposits are non-refundable, and he's sorry, but he's not returning any money. He's accused of being a party pooper.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket. The plaintiff says she hired a DJ for her daughter's Sweet 16. It was canceled because of the pandemic, and he won't return the money. An interesting case for sure. It's the case of bitter Sweet 16.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Ms. Gonzalez, you are suing Mr. Jeremy for the return of $1,600 that you say you paid him for a Sweet 16 for your daughter that was scheduled for May, correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, tell me what happened here.
So in the beginning of January, I reached out to Jeremy in regards to the date of May 30th, which I really wanted. My daughter's birthday was May 25th. So I really wanted that date because it was really close to her birthday. She was turning 16. You know, every teenage girl wants a Sweet 16. At the time when he reached out to me, Hola 15, but you know, I'm a Puerto Rican American, so we celebrate 16. I reached out to him at the time where we reached out to each other. I didn't have the full $1,000 that he requires to save the date on the deposit. So we reached out via text, and he agreed to the $600. So I think probably about within the week or a few days of the time.
He agreed to $600. You wanted to pay the $1,000 deposit in two parts, $600 and $400. That's your text.
Correct.
I read your text.
Correct.
All right. So as we all know, here it is. It's January. You like the venue. What kind of venue is this? Is it indoor, outdoor? What is it?
It's an indoor catering. It's an indoor catering hall.
Okay, and a catering hall. And how many people were you planning on having at your party?
About 150.
Yeah, it's like a wedding. Okay, so then you make the next. So you pay $600 that day, and then you pay how much more later? You pay another $1,000 in two payments. Right? And
Correct.
so now we're
Correct.
in the beginning, or we're in beginning of March, and you're supposed to make another payment, and the world
I halted.
happens.
I halted.
And what?
I
tell me
text
about
him.
the discussions you have with Mr. Jeremy about this. Go ahead.
So I text him. I work at a hospital, so I knew firsthand the direction that we were heading, and I emphasized that to him. I made the choice that I would not continue to pay him because I don't know the direction that we were going in this pandemic. So I didn't make any payments, and he understood that. He said, that's fine. I said, okay, we'll stay in touch. You know, I would text him here and there, probably every 2 to 3 weeks. And he would say, no, still just following the guidelines, which was fine because I too follow the guidelines. I too work in the medical field. I know what's going on. Right. So at this point, I had the discussion with my daughter's father. We weren't going to proceed with the Sweet 16. And I told him this. I said, I'm not going to proceed. He said, well, I'm rescheduling all my other events. That's what we're doing. We're postponing them. And I said,
it's interesting you say, I'm not going to proceed because this is kind of, you can't fire me, I quit. He can't give you the party. He can't do it.
Right,
and
I can't have the party. And I didn't want to have the party.
And you can't have the party because he can't give you the party, and neither can anybody else. You could do a 10-person party in your backyard, but you can't really proceed the way you wanted to.
Exactly.
So the question is, who takes the hit, right? That's the question. So let's talk about that.
Correct.
So you say to him, I want a full refund, right?
Right.
Or no? What do you say to him?
No, I said to him, you could keep the $600 deposit that I paid for and return back the $1,000. And he said, no, the $1,000 is what's on the contract. I'm going by what's on the contract. And I get it. Yes, okay. I gave him in installments fees or whatever. But on the contract, what I signed for on a deposit was $600.
Okay.
So why would you sue?
And then I
and then he offers So let me talk to you, Mr. Jeremy. You've had, I mean, I don't know of any other industry worse hit than venues.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I realize that restaurants have had problems, but a lot of restaurants can pivot. They can all of a sudden do curbside. They can try to have tables outside in those jurisdictions that are allowing that. They can do takeout. But venues, my God, what do they do? Now, is this also a restaurant?
We're not a restaurant. We're a catering establishment. Our license is for catering, so we're not able to do outdoor dining.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know.
Right.
It started with, you know, we got shut down March 17th. It started, we assumed March, April will be shut down. We had no idea when we'll be able to reopen, you know. So we had hopes of opening in May, hopes of opening in June. It started out as 32 events postponed. It ended up being until September, which came out to 60 events that we had to postpone. We've done partial refunds. We have clients that did cancel and understood they were losing the deposit, which I did not want to do. I didn't want anyone to lose any money. And we had, you know, a few cancellations. In the majority of the events, they were postponed. We gave clients many options to take partial. I gave clients options to take partial refunds and still have a credit with us. I tried my best to do as much as I possibly. I didn't want anyone to lose any money, you know. I explained to her the same thing. We can postpone the event. You're not going to lose anything that you paid. The event could be postponed. She kept saying, I don't want to do the event no more, which is understandable. Some people just don't want to do the event no more.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
she's
some,
16
yeah,
is a
for some
milestone
people,
age.
for
You
me,
don't-
if my, excuse me, Ms. Gonzalez. I understand what she's saying. I understand
Of
both
course.
philosophies. Like, you may say, hey, the moment passed. My philosophy is I'll celebrate. If I can't celebrate my 60th birthday, I'm going to be so angry. But I will celebrate it at
understand.
61 because I really, really want the party.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly.
you know, everybody has a different philosophy. But if the moment
Of course,
passes, the
absolutely.
moment passes. And if she doesn't want to do it, I get what she's saying too.
Yeah, no, I
The real
understood her
question
point, and I was
here
willing to-
is a very complex question because it's who needs to eat this? Who's supposed to eat this?
Absolutely.
Now, you made an offer to her that I'll keep the deposit, which in your eyes is 1,000, because that's exactly what the contract says. Whether she only gave you 600 because you were kind, or whether you know, she, you know, the contract literally says the deposit's 1,000, and then where you sign for 600, which she keeps insisting means you change the deposit. Let's look at that. No, it says deposit received, deposit received, deposit received. It says it 3 times because he's a nice guy trying to give people a chance to pay in parts on the deposit. So that's not true what you're saying. I'm not sure if it matters. I agree with you 100%. The deposit is 1,000. The rest of what she paid is 600. I do not agree with her on that. But because you guys have not been able to come to a resolution of how to handle the rest of this, it kind of puts me in the position of trying to figure out whether all of it goes back to her or none of it goes back to her. And so I have to look at the contract, because at some point you're offering 600, then to make this go away, you offered her 800. Let's split the baby, 800, and she still didn't take that. So now what I have to do is look at your contract and see whether what has happened gives you an out, because there are many ways to look at this, folks. And this is something that is presenting itself to courts of law all over the nation.
Absolutely.
And so I have to make a judgment call on whether this contract and its act of God clause protects you or protects him.
Welcome back to the People's Court. So who does the Act of God clause protect in this contract? The plaintiff or the defendant? Let's find out.
Cancellation. Rescheduling for events canceled due to inclement weather or acts of God. And then in parentheses it says fire, death, etc. shall be accommodated without penalty whenever possible. Rescheduled events are subject to availability. So, Jeremy, your argument is what?
I have no argument. She decided to cancel the event before we knew if the event can happen in May. She came in March and said, I want to cancel the event. There was no guarantee that there was no guarantee that we were not going to be able to host this event in May. She came to the conclusion, I do not want to have this party. I want to cancel the event. I said, no problem. Contract states that the $1,000 is non-refundable. And even with that, whether we
That's
get
interesting.
refunds
Let
or
me ask
not.
you a question. Let's be clear, though. At the end of the day, you couldn't have had the party because, in fact,
Yes.
the
Exactly.
this is a complicated mess, and it truly, I feel for both of you because I don't think either one of you are unreasonable people. You don't want to be out your money because you couldn't have your party, and you don't want to have to shut down your business because everybody wants to get back their money. Because I see all sides of this, and I'm tired. I am so tired of the isolation. I'm tired for our kids. I had 2 kids who were class of 2020. I had a high school student and a college student. My high schooler had no prom. I believe we should have prom next year, but my high school student looks at me like I'm an idiot. She
It's
doesn't want to do
over.
prom next year. It's over. The moment passed
over
for her.
for that, yeah.
And so I get it. It's hard. It's complicated. So
It's also very sad. It's very
what
sad
I do
for the people who can't
it is.
celebrate.
It's very sad for everybody. It's sad for everybody. And then I feel when I sit here and I complain about the loss of prom and the loss of my high school graduation, the loss of the other one's college graduation, and the loss of both their senior years, I feel like a jerk because there's people who lost their lives.
There's way more.
So I
exactly,
don't want to
exactly.
complain out loud. And the people who lost their lives, of course, that's infinitely worse. But you know what? Everybody else's pain that didn't die, our pain is real too.
Same here.
Our pain
Yep,
is real
absolutely.
too.
I have $1,000 dress sitting in storage that my daughter didn't even get to wear.
I know.
So I feel for her.
I've got it. It's not $1,000 because it's not a Sweet 16 dress, but I've got a $500 prom dress up there that I'm about to put on my head. Yeah, it's hard, man.
It's just
really
not
hard.
safe. I was playing it safe with my family.
I know. There's no question. There's no question. You are making the right decision, and there's no question.
Absolutely.
You can't give her what you contracted for. The question before
exactly.
me is who eats it, who gets the hurt, and why. So I look at the contract, and the contract says, if it's canceled due to inclement weather, acts of God, for example, fire, death, etc., shall be accommodated without penalty whenever possible. Rescheduled events are subject to availability. Now, she would like me to look at that and say, you have to accommodate me without penalty. And accommodating me without penalty means give me my money back because that's the only way you can accommodate me. Because
it means postponement, and you won't be charged anything more due to the postponement.
Why would she be really? Why would I be charged more for a postponement? Postponement would never cause me to charge because the person who can't have the party is you. There's not death in her family, and that's why she can't have the party. There's coronavirus. So the question becomes, does coronavirus and the fact of coronavirus, is that an act of God? Now, in this contract, it doesn't just say act of God and leave me to interpret my definition of act of God based on history, case law, whatever else. It says due to inclement weather or acts of God, and then there's a parenthesis that says fire, death, etc., close parentheses. In other words, this contract, by the way, all of your contracts should now say epidemic, pandemic, or whatever else you need to add that in your, right. But this contract went so much further than a regular contract that just says acts of God. This contract encompasses if there's a death, if there's a fire that prevents it, what is it that's going to happen? And what's going to happen is rescheduling. That's what this contract encompasses. So in this case, specific to this case, after great thought and turmoil, I am not going to order this defendant to return the $1,600. I am ruling in the defendant's favor. Now, let me just suggest something, Jeremy. I know that there was a point in time in this lawsuit where you wanted to part ways and you were willing to go $800 back. I can't compel that. I can't split the baby. That's not how you make decisions. You make decisions based on the law when the parties can't decide and agree on anything. I think it might behoove you to never have to deal with each other again. And in the spirit of good juju out there, to think about what figure you are willing to give her to walk away. But if you two can't come to a decision and an agreement on your own, then here is my decision. She has a $1,600 credit that she can use however she sees fit. Within reason, rescheduled events are subject to availability. Of course they are. That is within reason, but she gets to use it. You, however, as a business person, might want to think to yourself, hey, better to not have to reschedule this event and give her back half the money or whatever it is you decide. But like I said, that's up to you folks. It is completely 100% up to you folks.
I absolutely want to help her. I don't want her to lose her money. Any way we can work it out, I'm willing to do it. I don't want her to lose her money. She shouldn't lose her money. It's not fair. So any way we can work it out, whether it's a partial refund, credit, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Right. The issue of deposits are non-refundable doesn't cover this case. First of all, the deposit was $1,000 anyway. But the issue of whether deposits are non-refundable doesn't cover this case. This isn't a case where you change your mind. This is a case where it couldn't happen. So what this case encompasses is, did his contract take into account something like this? And I find that it did. My verdict in this case is for the defendant.
Let's see what Ms. Gonzalez feels about it first. We'll talk to the plaintiff first. What do you think, ma'am?
I'm definitely not rescheduling with him. So if the $1,000 he keeps, that's fine, but return the other remaining balance, which is of $600, and I don't ever want to deal with him ever again. And I won't refer anyone to him either.
All right, that's how the plaintiff feels. Jeremy, you just heard her. What do you think? The defendant, Jeremy. Talk to me, Jeremy.
I think it's very unfortunate and sad. I feel bad. I will refund her $600 if it's due. The $1,000 can still remain as a credit. I don't want her to lose her money. I'm just trying to run a business here. Out of 62 events that we postponed, this is the only one that we had to go through this, and I'm very sad and unfortunate.
All right, well, that's the decision of the defendant. He will give her $600 back if she wants it. Let's see what the judges have to say about this.
It's interesting that he was saying she's due $600. That's in his mind, because that's not my verdict. That's very nice of him.
Right.
If I were her, I'd be a little nicer so I can get my $600, because my verdict is she's due nothing. But go ahead.
It hits close to home too for us with these two kids, and our youngest, Sophie, doesn't want to do the prom a year from now.
No, she doesn't want. She doesn't even want to do the prom next week.
The Greek philosopher Heraclitus said you can't step in the same river twice, right? It's not
but you can.
It's not the same river, and you're not the same man or the same person a year from now. So I understand. Things change, Yeah. Things change. It's hard to recapture that moment.
Okay, Jody wants to know this. Hey, Harvey, when I got divorced in 1999, my ex-husband took our last federal income tax refund check and ripped it in half and sent me my half. I'm sorry for laughing. What can I do to get my money? God, Jody, you should have sued a long time ago. I think clearly the statute of limitations has run here. Obviously, it's a gross thing that he did to send you half the check that way. But this is a good example for everybody. When your rights are violated, you have to act promptly. And if you don't, the statute of limitations will run and you'll be out of luck. We'll see you next time.